try to do this the opposite way.
High fly ball, deep left field. Oh, 27 does it again.
God, Fernando Tatis Jr. with a two-run shot has the Padres on the board.
Go. That's his 11th home run.
Driven out to deep center field. Going back, Springer turning, looking, see ya! Oh, what a shot by Judge! The Yankees lead 1-0.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 18 of the Free Baseball Podcast with myself and Jake Crumpler, obviously, from the Athletes Hub. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to run down the month of May. We're kind of strapped for time, so we're going to try to run through it. Not speed run style, but close enough to it.
World record.
We'll get it started with a couple hot weeks. I'll hand the reins over to you, Jake.
Sure. Yeah. Let's start it out with Brandon Rogers, who I literally just got the notification right this second that he was the NL Player of the Week. He had a crazy week. 33 plate appearances, batted .345, 424, 828 with 10 runs, 4 homers, and 7 RBI. He tied for second in the National League with 0.6 FWAR, but he mostly got this Player of the Week honors for his 3 home run game last Wednesday, which was very impressive. He had 3 homers all season, I'm pretty sure. Nope, he had 2 homers all season, and now he's up to 6 on the year after another homer last night. For the season, he's batting .266, .316, .428, 28 runs, 6 home runs, 26 RBI for a 95 WRC plus. That's going to be detracted from because he plays his home games in Coors Field, but he has been really incredible. He was a top prospect for a while. He was an early round pick in his draft, and he's been pretty impressive and been doing it for my fantasy team. Can you believe this? I picked him up for the doubleheader that day on Wednesday, where he hit the 3 home runs in my fantasy league. It's a daily league, so I just picked him up for one day. Like, okay, it's a guy in Coors, like doubleheader in Coors, like that's the best that it gets. Man scored me 23 points. I couldn't believe it. That's like a really good start for a starter. It was insane. That was definitely the best pickup of the year, best pickup of my whole life for sure.
Absolutely. He had a crazy week. Rockies have been sputtering a little bit lately, but he's been pretty much the lone bright spot. Moving on to another 3 home run game. Friday this time, the Washington Nationals, who are also in dire straits currently. Their player Lane Thomas had a 3 home run game last week. Had 21 plate appearances, hit .412, .476 on base, 1,000 slugging percentage, pretty good. Scored 5 runs, obviously, which is buoyed by the 3 home runs. Had 5 RBIs as well, worth 0.5 FWAR, just a shade under Mr. Rogers. Fantasy winner, Mr. Rogers for Jake. On the season, he's struggling a little bit more. 226 average, 283 on base, 416 slug. 15 runs in his 6 home runs, 3 of them on the season came in that game on Friday. 22 RBIs and 92 WRC plus. So maybe this could be the start for Lane Thomas to really kind of get things back in gear. I mean, he had a little bit of a promising stretch last season and then kind of faded. And then this year just hasn't built on that at all up until now. So we'll see. Hopefully it can get him on the right track.
Bro, I hope so.
Yeah. I did you have him in one of your fantasy articles? I swear I've seen his name around.
I have him in one of my fantasy leagues. So like I was tweeting about him when I drafted him. So I'm hoping he picks it back up. But yeah, having that 3 home run game, I moved him into my lineup for the weekend because you can do that in NFBC leagues where it's like halfway through the week. Like once you hit Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you can switch your batters into the lineup for the weekend. And that was perfect. I moved Lane Thomas in and he hit me 3 home runs. It was huge.
Fantasy guru Jake Crumpler with the 3 home run.
I'm in second to last place in that league.
just predict more players hitting 3 home runs in the same game. You'll start skyrocketing up.
Exactly.
I'll go ahead and pick up the next guy just because I want to talk about my boy Matt Swarmer, Chicago Cub prospect, called up in like the last week or so. made a start on the 30th against Milwaukee and then again against St. Louis on the 4th. Went 6 innings in both, gave up 5 hits against the Brewers in his first start, 1 run, 1 walk to 6 strikeouts, 11 whiffs for a 30.4% call strikes plus whiffs percentage. Really good. And then backed it up again against the Cardinals. 6 innings again, 2 hits this time, 1 earned again, 2 walks to 5 strikeouts, 14 whiffs this time, 31.4 called strikes plus whiffs percentage. On the season, he's 1-0. He got a decision in one of those games. 12 innings pitched, he's got 11 strikeouts. He's not a huge strikeout guy. He's got a 1.5 ERA and a .83 whip. Just getting a ton of ground balls for the Cubs infield defense, which has been shaky outside of like Nico Warner. But, pretty solid. Pretty solid start from a guy that's kind of far down in their top prospect pool. Definitely didn't have the fanfare that another Cubs rookie starter had in the past week, which we'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
But good week for Matt Swarmer. Not really.
Yeah.
We were talking about it before the show, but somehow he was worth 0 WAR in the last week, which is kind of weird considering he had a 1.5 ERA and got a decision.
Yeah, he probably had a higher B WAR because B WAR is ERA based,
Mm-hmm.
but I was looking at Fangraphs F WAR, and that's FIP based. And if you're not striking out a lot of guys and maybe getting a lot of outs in the air, then you sort of will have a lower FIP in as a general rule, and that leads to a lower FIP based ERA F WAR. But yeah, these are pretty impressive first 2 starts to your career, especially against 2 team rivals in the Brewers and the Cardinals. So it really doesn't get much better than this. The only thing I know about Swarmer is he's got that weird leg kick that you sent to me.
Super high leg kick.
Yeah. Pretty interesting. I agree with you. I don't know if he's going to be like the most impressive starter, but sometimes you got guys that come up and they just like perform better in the majors than they did in the minors. So we'll see if Matt Swarmer can keep this up through the year.
Yeah, he's got that super high leg kick. He throws like low 90s, and then he just has a wiffle ball slider. That's basically his whole game. Fun to watch. The Cubs love ground ball pitchers. Basically, all of their pitchers are that mold, except for the guy that we'll talk about later. A little bit more big news on the extension front. We've talked about it a few times this week. Yordan Alvarez, big Astros slugger, and as of 16 minutes ago, AL Player of the Week. We talked about Brendan Rodgers already. But he got a 6-year, $115 million extension, which is the biggest deal ever for basically a DH-only player. It's the 4th biggest for a pre-arbitration player, just behind Fernando Tatis Jr., who obviously got the mega extension, 14 years, $340 million. Buster Posey, a man very close to Jake Crumpler's heart, the 8-year, $59 million extension, and Mike Trout, the GOAT, with his 6-year, $144.5 million extension. This is a really good move for the Astros. Obviously, it locks up Yordan Alvarez, he's just a beast. When he's actually healthy and getting to hit, like he's a top 5 maybe hitter in baseball. Even as young as he is, buys out 3 of his free agency years at a $26 million per year rate, which if he produces at the level he did in the last week, would be a steal considering he hit, I believe it was 565. He had a 1.847 OPS. He hit 4 home runs and he had 8 RBIs in the last week. Just
impressive.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, he's really good. He's just a guy who's dealt with some injuries to start his career, mostly knee stuff. He's like a big guy. Obviously, if you hit the ball as hard as he does, speaking of hitting the ball hard, he is like one of the most elite in all of baseball. I know when I write about him in my posts, I always write that he hits the ball like it's like Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton. We know how hard they hit it. And then third on that list is Yordan Alvarez. He just barrels the ball like crazy. He has so many hard hits. He's got crazy max exit velo. He's like the left-handed version of Stanton and Judge. He just like impacts the ball like crazy. So it's really awesome to see him get paid. For the Astros, maybe not the greatest, but I don't think Alvarez was around for the banging scheme in 2017. It's always fun to say. Dope to see him get paid, especially as a guy who can't really play the outfield with his horrible knees. But yeah, this is pretty cool. He's going to be murdering baseballs for a while in Houston.
Yeah, I know you talked about his hard hit percent and average exit velocity. He's in the 100th percentile for average exit velocity and hard hit percent. So he hits baseballs like they said something bad about his mom or something. He just punishes baseballs. Shame he plays for the Astros, who are basically Major League Baseball's villain. But he's a great player, and it's fun to see him succeed, and it's fun to see young players get paid early when they actually deserve to, like he has. Some more dour news, I guess, for I guess Joe Girardi, but not so much for the Phillies. The Phillies have fired Joe Girardi as of was it yesterday that they fired him, or was it
was
on Saturday?
2 or 3 days ago. They've played 2 games since then.
Right. I think it was on Saturday then that they fired him. But they were 23 and 29 under Joe Girardi this season. And from 2020 to 2022, they had a 135 to 141 record, which is good for a 489 win percentage with him as manager. How do you rate this move for the Phillies? And do you think they did this firing a little too soon or a little bit too late?
It's hard to tell with managers what the actual like consensus view is on them, because you don't really know how much impact they have, especially when you have to consider what effect the front office has as well in telling the manager what to do and that kind of stuff. So maybe this was a situation where he wasn't really keeping up with what the front office wanted him to do, and maybe wasn't good at like keeping the team cohesive and that kind of stuff. So it's really hard to grade moves like this, and it's hard to grade managers in general. I mean, I think Girardi's like a pretty mediocre manager. Like I've never heard of him doing anything like particularly interesting like you have with like, I don't know, Gabe Kapler and Kevin Cash and Craig Counsell. Like, those guys are good because they like do things that you don't see other managers do. But Girardi really hasn't done anything that I can really remember. He's good at arguing with umpires, I guess. He always looks good when he always looks good when he's out there like arguing with the umpires. So yeah, exactly. Got a lot of history doing that with the Yankees as well. So I don't know. I hope to see him stay in baseball. I think he's probably a good guy. I obviously don't know him, but yeah, the Phillies have been underperforming. I think they have a really good team. All of it obviously can't be blamed on Girardi. The team building there is a little off, where they just don't have a bullpen. They don't have any fielding, and that's sort of hard to build a good team around a team that has like a bunch of sluggers and like a couple aces and then nothing else from there. So you can't really blame everything on Girardi, but obviously he wasn't getting the most out of his team. I never really like mid-season firings, like it's sort of hard for like a team to recover. Like, are they going to be able to hire somebody? Is it just going to be the bench coach for the rest of the year? Like we saw with the Cardinals a few years ago when Schilt took over. I forget who was the manager before that.
Who was it?
It's like on the edge of my mind. I can't remember.
He ended up coaching the Royals after that.
Mike Matheny. Okay.
Yeah, Mike Matheny.
Yeah. He's the current manager there. But yeah, so I don't know. I feel like normally those midseason firings don't really go too well in my book. Just because it sort of makes the team look bad. Like they made a bad choice. Like, why did you sign this guy for so long? And then just like take the rug out from under for him, and now the team has to like rally around somebody else. But maybe this will get them going. They've won their last 2 games, so that's good for them.
Funnily enough, they fired him, and they're actually on a 4-game win streak.
Nice.
Yeah, which is maybe not indicative of Joe Girardi's skill as a manager or whatever, because it's baseball. I mean, teams go through peaks and valleys, but I mean, like you said, I think he was just kind of a mediocre manager that just didn't do enough for a team that has higher expectations than probably what they should. They've got kind of a cobbled together rotation, terrible bullpen. We joked about it being a graveyard several times on the show before. Their lineup is really good, with stars. Schwarber, obviously, Castellanos flanking, Bryce Harper, who's a generational player. But like, they haven't really done anything at all. They've kind of been mired in like 3rd or 4th place in the NL East for the last like 6 or 7 years. They just don't. They don't compete, and they always kind of look like they will, and they always kind of end up right around 500, which is obviously not good enough, especially now that the division has gotten so much better. Yeah, I think this was. I also am not a big fan of like midseason firings. It's not like baseball is not a sport that's like a soccer or like an NFL or even like a basketball where you fire the coach mid-season, you bring someone else in, you kind of get that like galvanization in like a short season. Baseball is a marathon, not a sprint. So it's like, okay, well, you bring a new coach in, but it's not like they really have like major practices to work on stuff. And it's not like it's not like a team can really have as much of like a fleshed out philosophy in baseball, I
Yeah.
guess,
Mhm.
as like a football team, for example. It's not like a coach is going to come in and like rally the troops and bring in a new system that's going to make them good. It's like, no, the players still need to hit, and they still need to field, and they still need to score runs, and they still need to pitch. So it's like it can only do but so much. But I do think Girardi probably needed to go. I don't think he was a really great hire in the first place, and I know a lot of Philly fans complained about it when he got hired in the first place.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, this move is kind of like an it is what it is move.
Mhm.
Yeah,
They could have had freaking Tony La Russa, bro. I can't believe they went with Girardi.
yeah, that's crazy. They could have got one. They could have swapped one angry dinosaur for a slightly younger angry dinosaur. Sorry, slightly older angry dinosaur with Tony La Russa. Yeah.
Well, Davis just froze a little bit. I don't know if that's only on my side. Nope.
Oh,
All right,
where
you
it
back?
flashed for a second.
E.
Yeah. Oh well, we're back. We can go to a little bit of a happier side of the news with some top
Perfect.
prospect call ups, and I'll hand the floor over to you.
Sure. Yeah, we don't have the biggest ones this week, especially when you're considering who we've talked about in recent weeks with like Adley Rutschman being called up. Was a huge one. I forget who else was called up that week too, but we've had some really big call ups recently. So here are some more minor ones, minor leagues. There's the pun. First one, we got Zach Thompson, a left-handed starter for the Cardinals. He made his first appearance this past week, and it was out of the bullpen. He pitched 4 innings, but he was he will soon be in the rotation at some point. He was the 19th overall pick in the 2019 draft. So that's the first round pick for the Cardinals in 2019, just a few years ago. He's 24 years old right now. He was the number 9 Cardinals prospect according to MLB Pipeline at his debut, and in AAA this past year, he tossed 44 in a third innings with a 4.67 ERA, a 1.15 WHIP, much better than that ERA, and a 30% strikeout rate, 30.1, and that was all at AAA. So pretty solid guy. Don't know much about him. He seems like obviously he had some potential. If you're drafted in the first round, you've obviously got just baseball skills already without having to like perform that well. He was like really bad last year. I think it was at AA or AAA, but he's turned it around a lot this year. So maybe he'll just be a bullpen guy, swing man. We'll see. I think he is an interesting guy, but obviously not like the most known.
Right. I don't think there's a whole lot else to really say about this one. I mean, he probably is going to fit into the Cardinals rotation somewhere, just because the Cardinals rotation isn't very strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he'll definitely get to throw a lot. But it's good seeing relatively recent draft prospects come up pretty early. The Cardinals are one of the teams that do that really well. I hate when they do that, specifically being a Cubs fan. So, but yeah, I mean, Thompson was good in his first appearance. Ended up getting a save, which is nice. 4 inning save in your debut.
Yeah. Well, we got something to offset that Cardinals debut.
That is true. The Chicago Cubs called up their actual number 1 pitching prospect. He's a number 5 prospect, according to MLB Pipeline. That's Caleb Killian. He was acquired in the Chris Bryant trade from San Francisco last year at the trade deadline. He was an 8th round pick in the 2019 draft, same draft as Zach Thompson, 25 years old. Made his debut yesterday. Had a solid debut. It wasn't anything super special. Struck out the first 2 batters he faced. Was perfect through 3, I believe, and then kind of the wheels fell off a little bit. But it happens. Last season in AAA, he was really good. 39.1 innings pitched with 2.06 ERA, 1.27 WHIP, and a 24.8% strikeout percentage. He's like the antithesis of a Cubs starter right now, where he's not a soft tosser that just gets a bunch of soft contact and ground balls. He throws mid to high 90s with a pretty good slider. Yeah, first batter he faced, I believe the first 2 batters he faced, he struck out with all fastballs. I know he struck out Edman with all fastballs on 3 pitches. He just gassed him up 3 times. So, good to see. Hopefully he gets to stick around. I know there's been a couple moves made by the Cubs, so there's a good chance he probably does get sent back to AAA, which would suck because the Cubs are going nowhere, and they ought to just leave all the young guys up that can play as much as they can. Especially Killian, who was a 25-year-old rookie who's kind of verging on like you kind of need to keep him up now territory. So, I mean, good debut. Promising signs for a franchise that's going nowhere like Chicago Cubs.
Yeah. Won't he stay up with Drew Smiley hitting the IL though?
I think there's a chance, but they've kind of been bringing Mark Leiter in and out. And I know they like Leiter, so there's probably a decent chance that one of them will come back in. I think they had some other moves they made. I need to check their transactions.
Does somebody need to tell them that Mark Leiter is in fact not Jack Leiter, and that he's actually just his older brother?
You could tell them that, and they probably were like, I hear you, but I'm not listening.
He's still a son of Al. He's still a son of Al Leiter.
Good.
He's gonna be amazing.
He's still good. His debut wasn't that bad. He just he started out good, and then he kind of got by Coors because it's Coors. But like, I don't know. Hopefully Killian will stay back up. They made a couple like weird-ish moves. They've already actually sent him back down to the minors as of yesterday, but they should just keep him back up. I don't know why there's any reason to not do that. They've had a couple like relievers bounce in and out, like Michael Rucker and Manny Rodriguez, that have gone from like AAA and like AA back up like to like the big league team, and then they'll like hit the IL or they'll like kind of go down. They also outrighted Robert Selman, who's kind of been terrible. So yeah, they've been a weird franchise because they're a weird franchise. Moving on to a little bit more exciting news for another weird baseball team, the Texas Rangers. Infield utility man Ezekiel Duran, who was acquired in the Joey Gallo trade with New York, obviously with the New York Yankees. He made his debut last week. Actually hit his first home run last night. We talked about that before the show. We're super hyped for him, talking about honestly just how bad the Yankees have kind of got in the Rangers trade. He signed in 2017. He's 23 years old. He's the number 75 prospect in all of baseball, and he's the number 4 prospect in the Rangers system according to MLB Pipeline. This season in AA, he's hitting 317 with 365 on base percentage, 574 slug, 939 OPS. He's hit 7 home runs and 7 steals, so he's a power speed guy. 18% strikeout percentage, which is on the lower end, 132 WRC plus, which is very, very good. It looks like he could be a big piece for a Rangers team that looks honestly a lot more exciting than I think either of us were really prepared for. Like they're firmly in like the bad but fun category.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, sort of like the the Pirates and the Orioles are trying to get into that territory right now, but thank God the Rangers at least signed Semien and Seager so that they weren't just terrible to watch. But Duran's pretty interesting. The highest ranked prospect to be called up this past week. He had an 18% strikeout rate in AA, which was a very large step up from his over 30% strikeout rate that he was featuring in the prior couple of seasons. So that's a huge step up. That was one of the reasons that made me go and grab him in my fantasy league, because he seems to have figured out some more things. He's like an aggressive guy, not as aggressive as maybe Javi Baez or other guys of that nature where they just never take walks. He doesn't take a lot of walks, but he doesn't seem to be a guy that strikes out as much as Baez. So he's pretty interesting. Obviously, he hasn't played it above AA, so he may find some struggles recently, but he's off to a good start. Didn't strike out in his first game. His second game, he had I think he was 2 for 4 with a homer, a single, and only 1 strikeout. So that's pretty solid so far. I think he's going to be interesting. He's going to be a fun guy to watch. He sort of like a shortstop prospect for the Yankees. He played some second base this last year. And then with the signings I guess he played second base once he got traded over to the Rangers in the Gallo trade, like you said. But once they signed Semien and Seager, they started playing him at third base, especially with Josh Young hitting the IL for a majority of the season. They needed a third base prospect that could be called up. And with all of the guys that they had struggling, like Charlie Culberson and just forgot his name. That's too bad. They did call up Josh Smith, though, and that didn't go well because he literally got injured like 2 games into the season. And so yeah, they needed a third base guy, and they went with Duran, and it's paying off so far. And I think he could be a really interesting batter with power and a good hit tool and a little bit of speed.
Yeah, I like this move. Obviously, I love prospect call-ups, especially for teams like all of these teams, apart from the Cardinals, really have been decent. Um, Teams that are bad at this point in the season, I know it's very early, ought to just be playing their guys that they think are ready, and they shouldn't dilly dally around with it. We all hate it, so just call it prospects, let them play. Everyone likes it, gets people to come to your ballpark. And another one that actually happened yesterday, but he has yet to make his debut, is Pittsburgh Pirates prospect Travis Swaggerty. He's called up yesterday. They purchased his contract. He's going to make his debut tonight. He's the 10th pick in the 2018 draft, and is 24 years old. He's their number 13 prospect. And so far this season in AAA, he's hitting 280, the 362 on base, the 439 slug, which is good for an 801 OPS. He's got 4 home runs, 5 stolen bases, and a bit higher on the strikeout side. He's striking out about 28% of the time. The Pirates are actually kind of turning a corner, and they're getting very close to the bad but fun category. And I'm saying this from a rival fan perspective. I'm a Cubs fan, so the Pirates have actually, I think they've won. I need to check, but I think they've won like 4 of their last 5.
Yeah, you're going to be surprised to see where they are in the standings when we get to that point of the podcast.
Yeah, I think they've won 4 of their last 5. Good for them. Good for them. They're a franchise that is owned by a terrible owner, and they're a cheapskate franchise. And
Bob Nutting.
Yeah, horrible Bob Nutting. So anything good that happens to the Pirates, it's hard to like root against them because like they have to go through so much.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Poor
good.
fans. Good
for the Pirates. Hopefully Travis Swaggerty will be good. Good for them when he makes his debut tonight. Maybe we'll talk about him on the next show. Maybe he'll pop off and have his own 3-year home run game where Jake will pick him up in fantasy.
Yeah, so that would be cool. Anytime you have a guy that's like a top 10 pick, you know that they are really good at baseball, even if they don't perform that well in the minor league. So he's got all the potential in the world. Like if you are a top 10 pick in any year, you've got tons of potential. It's just a matter of whether or not you can tap into that. He really has not been able to do that in the minor leagues. And his 28% strikeout rate at AAA with a 117 WRC plus isn't the most amazing, but it's a step up from what he's been doing in the past. He really hasn't been that great. Especially last year was his first year at AAA, and he had a 108 WRC plus, but that was a 220 average with 3 home runs across just 12 games. I think he's been dealing with a lot of injuries as well. So he's an interesting guy to consider. I don't think he's going to pop off right away, but all the best for Travis Swaggerty. He's got a cool name, and if he had only come up just like a few years ago, he would have been the biggest deal. Just swag, all just oozing swag.
They'd be just selling out in jerseys too. Yeah. So I mean, he's the number 13 prospect on MLB.com, but he's just kind of like a power speed guy, or should be a power speed guy. He's not really doing much of either. So hopefully, there's been a couple of players that have made a leap basically from AA and really kind of hit it in stride and done well, like Christopher Morel this year. Maybe Travis Swaggerty, even though he struggled in AAA, will just hit the big leagues and just hit the ground running and be really good for the Pirates. It's could be aided by a fixed baseball. We talked about the dead ball a few podcasts ago. On May 15th, but on June 3rd, 57 home runs in a single day, tied for the 4th most in a single day in all of baseball history. Is the ball fixed? I mean, we talked about the dead ball through May 15th, obviously on our show previously.
Talked about it multiple times.
Yeah, well, yeah, we've complained about it because offense league wide had just been completely awful. Like there's been nothing. Through May 15th, the average line in baseball was 234 average, 307 on base, 376 slug, and a 683 OPS, which is putrid. And since then, it is now a 250 average, 317 on base, 408 slug, and a 725 OPS, which is basically in line with what it's been the last few seasons, apart from like the ridiculous juice ball season. or it was a bit higher than that, I believe. So is the ball fixed, or is it just hitters adjusting and the year kind of going on? What are your thoughts?
I think it's definitely a combination of a lot of things, especially a lot of the things that I mentioned the last time we talked about this, and when we've talked about the dead ball in the past, where you have the weather heating up. That always increases offense when we hit the summer. The weather heats up. We know that we had a delay to spring training and a shortened spring training because of the lockout and that kind of stuff. So that means batters are going to take a while to catch up, get into a groove. So that's another factor. I think one of the greatest factors, unless they really like started implementing the juice balls again, I think the greatest factor is that we have the humidors around all of baseball. And that was one of the big reasons why people were talking about that the dead ball was dead, that the ball was dead, because the humidors were in every single stadium after they had only been in around half in the previous season. And the thing with the humidor is, like I said in the last time we talked about this, is that it's a baseline of humidity so that all the balls have the same level of humidity, the same amount of moisture within them. So the ball flies differently based off the humidity around it. So if you're in a less humid area and you have a ball that's more humid than the surrounding air, it's going to be heavier than the air, right? It's going to slow down when it's in the air, right? Because it's so heavy. But then when you have the opposite, when we get to the summer and it's more humid, like it's really humid out here in California yesterday, pretty muggy, and especially when you're in like the Midwest, like I don't know, Cincinnati, Cleveland, those places have got to be absolutely horrible in the summer. Same with like Washington, D.C., just
Yes.
Florida. Yeah, super muggy, super humid. The air is now heavier than the ball because the ball's level of humidity has not changed at all. So now what a lot of analysts, guys who like actually study the ball, like Eno Saris, guys like that who really are in touch with these kind of things, who have connections within Major League Baseball organizations, they predicted that once we get to the summer, the humidity level is going to flip flop and the ball is going to start flying, maybe not at the level of 2019, but back to regular levels, and not just like, it's flying more than it was in April when it was literally not flying at all, but really it's going to get back to regular summer levels, not just an increase in comparison to what we had before, but all the way back to what we expect. And that is exactly what we've seen. Like you said, 57 home runs in a single day, fourth in MLB history. Just wanted to reiterate that. Pretty crazy. Considering what we've been through this season, that's incredible. I'm sure one of those games was in that 2019 season, but that's crazy that we've got the ball all the way back. We've now seen 5 3-home run games this season and 2 in the past week. So yeah, it looks like everything is all the way back. Let's hope it continues through the end of the season. The ball will obviously die down a bit once we get to September. But right now it's looking good. Everything's fixed. We've got offense back. We don't have to hear people complaining about the ball anymore, which was totally justified. But yeah, now my long-winded explanation of the science of the baseball as best I could in an easy to understand way is over. But yeah, just that 725 OPS since we last talked about it is a 42-point jump in OPS. That's massive.
Yeah,
league wide.
That's crazy. And like you said, I do think it's a variety of a bunch of those factors, but specifically with the humidity change, because it really did start of the season feel like the regular exit velocities were just kind of dying, and you'd see like inconsistencies with the ball and like with exit velocity and like hard hit balls that would be on the same launch angle and same basically the same exit velocity, just kind of one would get out, and then one would be like a warning track fly out or just barely get out, when the other one would be like a bomb. And it's kind of evening out, which is good for the sport. Everyone wants to get to see offense. I mean, pitching's great. People want to get to see home runs. You know, people want to see offense. People want to see hits, and it's good for baseball when there is offense. Maybe not at the level of the juice ball. That's kind of ridiculous, but I think baseball's in a good spot right now with where it's been at. Maybe we'll see more 57 home run days. I doubt it. Although that'd be really cool. I liked MLB actually had like a super cut of all the home runs being hit. It's so
retweeted
long.
that.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool video. So maybe we'll get a couple more of those this season. We're gonna jump on to the crux
for the main event of the evening.
our May month in review. We did our April review last month.
That was
And we're just-
episode number 13.
Right.
If anybody wants to go back and check that out.
Definitely go back and rewatch those on the YouTube channel, the Athletes Hub, where you can watch all of our shows, and you should watch every show. Come back, talk to us, engage with us on Twitter. You can see
Every
it at the bottom.
Mondays at 4.
Yeah, every Monday at 4, except when we can't, which we'll let you know, and you can find out when those change by following the Athletes Hub on Twitter, where you can follow myself at DVSBird and Jake at Jake Crumpler. We're going to talk about our May month interview, just like we did our April interview. So we're going to run down like the league leaders and talk about them a little bit, like average, hits, runs, etc. We're going to talk about the division standings and the league standings, players of the month, rookies of the month, pitchers, relievers, and just go down all the happenings in baseball. So
and a caveat here is that if you're comparing these to the last month in review, that month started on the 7th. So this is our first full month of Major League Baseball. Yeah. So yeah, this is from May 1st through May 31st. So the counting stats will be higher. Some of the rate stats will be lower, but nonetheless, just wanted to point that out, that this was our first full month of the Major League season.
And we're going to kick it off by starting on the league leaders, like I said. We're going to start with average. The AL leader in batting average was the Boston Red Sox, JD Martinez, 406 batting average. And the NL leader is Paul Goldschmidt with a 404 average. These two guys are just beasts. We talked about, we haven't talked about JD as much this season. We talked about Paul Goldschmidt last show. Like I said, you can go watch all of those on the Athletes Hub YouTube channel. You should do that. High average for these guys. They're just pure hitters. What's the likelihood that they kind of stay in like the high 300s to 400 range? I don't know, but really, really tearing it up, considering that they kind of still struggled with the dead ball. Even so far at the start of May, it hadn't quite reached the level that we were all hoping for with the dead ball. So what are your thoughts, Jake?
Yeah, starting with Martinez, he seems like a guy that thrives when offense is at its worst. If you recall last year, when April, it was like terrible. Like we had all of those no hitters. It was like we looked like we were on a record setting pace for no hitters in a season. It was just like a no hitter every week or something. JD Martinez was like the best hitter in baseball across that time, and he's looking like he's doing that again. The only thing this year is now he's just lost most of his power. He's become more of like a contact guy. He's always been a guy who can hit well over 300, but he used to be a guy that hit more than 40 home runs, and right now I think he's got like 5 home runs on the season, 4 or 5, very, very low amount. But if you're batting 406 for a whole month, then it doesn't really matter how many home runs you're hitting. He was really good. He's been a really good contact hitter this year, and it's sort of like a morphing of his abilities at the plate, of his skill set at the plate as he gets older. But nonetheless, he's still really good. And Paul Goldschmidt is just absolutely insane.
Yeah,
it's just so crazy. I'm pretty sure he had like a 23-24 game hitting streak that ended the other night, but God, he was absolutely insane. Batting over 400, he hit like 9 home runs or something. He was one of the best players in all of baseball in May. Just absolutely crazy. There's really not much else to say about him other than that, like, he was unstoppable. I have him in one of my fantasy leagues, and it's like I'll like look at my fantasy teams every night, like 11:30. So like the stats won't reset. They reset at midnight. So like at 11:30, I'll like look through all my teams. It takes me about half an hour. When I get to the team with Paul Goldschmidt on it, it was just every single day, like 3 for 4, a run, a home run, 2 RBIs. I'm like, holy moly, how does he keep doing this? He's literally been incredible. And we had already talked about him. He has like a Hall of Fame guy now that he's just continuing to be incredible. Like, you thought maybe he was falling off after last season, but I hate to be so long-winded on the first stat of our league leaders, but I just had to go off about Paul Goldschmidt because I know you wouldn't as a Cubs fan.
I like Goldie. I don't like that he plays for the Cardinals, but we talked about him last show too as a potential MVP candidate. I mean, if he keeps doing what he's been doing, it's hard to not put him in that category because he's just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
The defense has kind of fallen off, but when you hit that well, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, talking about him on the season, of course he hit 404 in the last month, but on the season. He's hitting 343 as a whole. He's hit 18 doubles, 12 home runs. He scored 39 runs. He's got 47 RBIs, hitting 343, which is just ridiculous. 70 hits. I think he either is or was like right around where Machado was for the league leader in hits. JD Martinez on the other side, you talked about kind of the lack of power, but he's really taking advantage of Fenway, and he's been absolutely roping doubles. He's got 18 doubles, just like Goldschmidt. And Goldschmidt's a pretty good runner for like a first baseman, and kind of always has been. JD Martinez has always kind of been seen as like a big kind of like lumbering, slow, like he's a DH only kind of guy. Every now and then they'll throw him in left, but I mean he's hit 18 doubles and he's hit 5 home runs. As long as he kind of still sits around like the 25 home run mark, which he probably will, he's still just an insane hitter. Even if the 40 home run power has kind of diminished. Just two really great players. I'll give Paul Goldschmidt his due, even if he is a St. Louis Cardinal, scion of the devil themselves. So, and on that front, the hits leaders for the month, we've got another Red Sox, and it's that man again, Paul Goldschmidt. Paul Goldschmidt led the NL in hits with 42, and the AL's Boston Red Sox, Rafael Devers, Raffy Big Scoops, had 45 hits in the last month. We talked about him too a couple podcasts ago as a potential guy that could get to 3,000 hits, and I mean he's been on an insane pace this year. So I mean, what are your thoughts on these two guys? What are your thoughts on Rafael Devers? Because we just talked about Paul Goldschmidt.
I was gonna say not much else to say about Goldie, but yeah, Devers has been really impressive. When I wrote up my top fantasy baseball performers of the month, which you can find over at theathleteshub.org, I do a weekly and a monthly version of that article. Devers was a surprise addition for me, whereas I know that he's really good. I know about his skills. I know that he's been solid this year, but I didn't know that he was that amazing this past month. Like, I had no idea he was one of the top hitters in all of baseball. I know that he's been that for his career, but it was pretty impressive, especially to lead the majors with 45 hits. He's just one of the best pure hitters. He's still super young. I think he's still only 25. He's definitely a guy who I don't think is going to be in the MVP conversation at year's end, but he is going to be an amazing hitter for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, he's just another. We talked about Yordan Alvarez. We talked about the extensions for Tatis, etc. Rafael Devers is one of the best young players in all of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
He's sitting currently in 5th for the average leader in all of baseball, which is crazy because the other two guys that we've been talking about, Paul Goldschmidt and JD Martinez, just above him. Goldie's 0.2 points higher than him, and JD Martinez is about 12 points higher than him.
And they're like 10 years older than he is.
Yeah. Like I think JD Martinez is literally like 12 or 13 years older than him, or something like that, which is crazy that he's this young and he's just this consistent. Yeah, it's just good season so far for him. He's actually leading all of baseball in hits now, taken over from Machado. He is 6 clear of Ty France in second. So he is on pace to be baseball's hit leader for the season. And, maybe, just maybe he will. I know he was on pace at one point. Maybe, just maybe he'll crack the hits record in the season. Doubt it, but we'll see.
Definitely not.
Maybe not, definitely not. He was on pace at one point. I think it was like right at the start of the month that he was like,
yeah.
Oh, he'll get there. It's like him and Machado.
Hard to beat Ichiro.
Yeah, he doesn't exactly have the wheels Ichiro did. But on that same vein, leaders in runs, Rafael Devers led the AL in runs with 25, and former Red Sox, sorry guys, Mookie Betts led the NL with 31 runs. He is actually on pace to break the record for runs in a season. So, Mookie, he's Mookie. Everyone knows he's and for my money, I think he's the second best player in baseball when he's healthy and when he's playing well.
Mm-hmm. He's crazy. It's too bad he's on the Dodgers. I loved him when he was on the Red Sox. Yeah, he's crazy. He's tied for the National League lead in home runs. He was just recently leading it up until 2 days ago when Pete Alonso tied him with 2 home runs. He's got 16 on the year, but he's got 12 on the year, or 12 on the month, which we'll hit on the next section. Sorry for the spoiler. But yeah, 31 runs. I don't think he's quite at the major league record pace, which is like, I don't know, it's like freaking like 180 or something. But my last article, top fantasy baseball performers of the week. I think it was the weekly one. It was the weekly one where he was on pace for over 160 runs, which hadn't been done since like Lou Gehrig in 1937, and even 150 runs hasn't been done since like Jeff Bagwell in 2000, and he was the first to do so since Ted Williams in the 40s. So I mean, if he scores 150 runs, it's going to be an incredible season. If he scores 160 runs, it's going to be like mind blowing. I don't think people are even going to realize it, how amazing that is. Obviously, you need help from a really good lineup, but you also have to be really good. And that's what Betts has been doing so far. So definitely keep your eye on him, because people maybe thought he was done after last year. It was a down year for him, which is definitely much better than most people's best seasons. He had a down year, and it was pretty mediocre for Betts caliber season. And now he's just had another bad April, or mediocre April, not really bad. And he's just taken off this month. He's looking like best player in second best player in baseball again. You know, there was always the conversation over the last couple of years after Harper dropped out of that debate. It was Betts and Trout, and Betts is right back in there, just crazy on the WAR, because he's just got crazy fielding. He's got good base running. He can hit for power, hit for average, and being atop a Dodgers lineup, getting on base as much as he does is going to afford him tons of opportunities to cross home plate.
Yeah, a couple interesting facts about Mookie Betts' his hot start so far. He actually scored his 50th run, and he scored 50 runs in 46 games played, which is ridiculous. That doesn't really ever happen. He's actually the first Dodger to do so since 1930. And what's even better about that is he's currently on pace to be the only player since Ricky Henderson in the last 70 years to score more runs than they have in games played. He's also, since he's played his first full season, he has scored more runs than anybody else in all of baseball since 2015.
That's wild.
And in addition to that, in his 2018 season, which he won MVP, he scored his 50th run in his 51st game. So he's on a better pace run scoring than when he won the MVP.
Doesn't stop.
No, just absolutely doesn't. He has just been on fire. Like you said, we talked about the home runs leader. We can skip a little bit on Mookie Betts. You know, power's kind of come back for him. 12 home runs. Kind of. It's always been there. He struggled a little bit, and now he's just demolishing baseballs and making baseball look criminally easy.
Yeah.
You
don't really think of a guy who's like 5'8" as being able to lead a league in home runs.
Yeah, especially compared to the AL home run leader. It's a shame Isaiah isn't here to talk about him. Aaron Judge is the AL home run leader, and it's Aaron Judge. He's for my money. I mean, he's right there, if not, the AL MVP at the moment. So yeah, 12 home runs. He's had an amazing season. But Mookie Betts on his heels. Mookie Betts on his heels in the other division. Or in the other league, excuse me.
Yeah, Judge is insane. 12 home runs. He hit a few more in the first week of June. Since we're slightly late on this, our last podcast was 2 days before the end of the month, so we decided to wait another week to do it, just to let all the stats finish out. And Judge is up to 21 homers on the year to lead all of baseball. I think that's couple more than 5 more than second place, which
That's
is
crazy.
Especially after just like 2 months.
More.
He's been going crazy. He impacts the ball harder than anybody else. Still kicking myself over not drafting him in my fantasy league. This has been haunting me all year. I
pick over him,
bro. Listen to this. I ranked him over the 2 guys that I took ahead of him. So I get into the draft. It's like my 4th pick. And I'm just like, all right, I'm thinking between Luis Robert, Aaron Judge, and a 3rd player who I'll mention shortly for more dramatic effect. And I started doubting myself, even though like I spent hours like researching and stuff, like put Judge ahead of him, have all the stats, project him for more points. And I was like, you know what? I'm scared of Judge's injury history. Like, I don't know what's going to happen with like his vaccine stuff, his vaccine eligibility for Toronto. I don't know if like all of this stuff's going to get to his head, because he's about to hit free agency too after this season. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm going Luis Robert, like that one was fine. Luis Robert's been really good, other than like being injured and having COVID and stuff, which has held him back a little bit. So there's that. the thing is, I get my next pick like 5 picks later, and Judge is still on the board. So now I have a chance to make up for my minor transgression there. And I went and was just like, I'm still scared of him. Still not going to trust the rankings that I spent hours doing, like gonna like let the draft room alter my thinking. And I chose Brian Reynolds over Aaron Judge, and he has been absolutely terrible this season. And I've been kicking myself all year. Like the fact that I could have had Luis Robert and then still had the opportunity to get Judge and went with Brian Reynolds. It's really disappointing because I might be in first place at this point. He's just destroying Brian Reynolds. But yeah, that is a long story that I just felt I had to put out somewhere. It makes me feel a little better to be able to vent about it. Not that I haven't vented about it a lot to like my league mates already, but yeah, it's pretty tough pill to swallow. But you know what? I got to make it tough on myself. I've won 3 years in a row. Got to make it harder on myself. Got to find somebody else to replace him.
Got to throw that fact in there. If you're in Jake's league that you've lost to him 3 years in a row, just draft Aaron Judge and just beat it this time.
Hey, man, somebody did.
Well, I'm assuming they're doing pretty well.
They are not.
Well, we can move on to some baseball players who are doing really well, not like Brian Reynolds. AL's RBI leader, it's another Boston Red Sox. It's Trevor Story, who, after an absolutely disgusting start to the year, everyone's like, oh, his contract was a bust. 32 RBIs in the month of May, leading all the AL, but not all of baseball, because Paul Goldschmidt hit one more than him, drove in one more run than him. We already talked about Goldie enough. Get out of my life, Paul Goldschmidt. So we'll talk about Trevor Story. Like we said, that absolutely putrid start where the Red Sox really just kind of fell apart to start the season. I mean, they had really high expectations after getting into the playoffs last year, and then adding Trevor Story, and then he was like a net negative for almost the entirety of April. He just poured it on the month of May. He was really, really good. Got his WRC plus all the way back up to 116, where he was hitting like well below league average at one point. A good Trevor Story is a good Boston Red Sox. Good Boston Red Sox makes Isaiah mad if he was here. So got a good point there. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about Mr. Story, Jake?
Mm-hmm. Well, he did most of his damage in just a 1 week span where he broke out from his season-long slump. He was the leader of my top fantasy baseball performers article for week 7. He started that off with a 3 home run game and then just kept going off the rest of the week, hit 3 more home runs the rest of that week, hit another home run the following week, was just killing it. He's not been doing that great in the average department, but that was sort of a given when you leave Colorado and its BABIP boosting effects. Things aren't going to go as well, but it was really looking terrible. It was looking like he was really actually going to be a big contract bust until he went off that week and turned his whole season around. It's crazy that we're still so early in the season that somebody can just have like a 3 home run game and completely turn their season around from like looking pretty bad to, oh wow, this guy's actually like killing it now. Tons of RBI. He had 17 in that 1 week and still added 15 more the rest of the month. So pretty dope to see Trevor Story coming back strong. He hasn't been as hot since then, but it's glad to see that. Was feeling bad for Red Sox fans. Their team was doing really bad. And the fact that we have Devers, JD Martinez, and Trevor Story in these league leaders probably tells you how good the Red Sox were in the month, at least on the offensive side.
Yeah. Red Sox really trying to get back in the thick of it after kind of starting out absolutely horribly. And moving on to stolen base leaders, got a couple guys, got another guy in the AL East. Cedric Mullins actually leads all of baseball in stolen bases, and led the month with 8. In the NL, there are 4 players that just had 1 less than Cedric. It's Philadelphia Phillies Gene Segura, Ronald Acuna Jr., obviously the Atlanta Braves, Cardinals Harrison Bader, and Tommy Edman. So 2 Cardinals on there, 7 steals. Getting into scoring position so Paul Goldschmidt can score them every time. And Ronald Acuna Jr., torn ACL, 7 steals, no problem.
Easy.
That guy's a freak. So stolen bases on the downswing. These guys trying to bring it back. Just like the guy, I think he plays for what does he play for Vanderbilt in college, where he's got like more steals than all of college baseball right now.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I don't know his name.
Nothing quite like that, but these guys, speedsters, definitely wreaking havoc on baseball paths, on the base paths.
Yeah, good to see Mullins making up for his bat not being as strong as it was last year with the speed on the bases. And obviously Bader led the NL last month, so he's been one of the biggest base stealers. Nobody's got more stolen bases than Julio Rodriguez, though, the
My mistake.
uber prospect. All good. Yeah, but Gene Segura is now on the IL for quite some time with a broken finger or something. Ronald has been up and down from the bench because he's been injured and stuff. And Tommy Edman obviously plays every day, but stolen bases, can't really say much. It's really more about a will rather than being super amazing or anything. Like when you have guys like Paul Goldschmidt stealing a few bases and they're in like the bottom 10% of sprint speed and stuff. If that doesn't tell you that it's not all about speed when stealing bases, then I don't know what does.
Yeah. Paul Goldschmidt probably will finish June as like steals leader just to further pile it on. And we're going to talk about him again. OPS leaders of the month of May. Paul Goldschmidt led all of baseball. 1288 OPS. Crazy. Rafael Devers, another guy we talked about a lot. Right behind him, 1.132 OPS. They just rake. I mean, we talked about it already. Nothing really much to talk about anymore here. They hit baseballs real good. And same thing in F4. Rafael Devers led the AL in F4, 2.4. And Mookie Betts led the NL in F4, 2.6, leading all of baseball for the month of May. They're just really good at baseball. That's why they're on here. So we like to talk about good baseball players, and they were the best ones. So we'll move on to the pitching side. AL leaders in wins. A bunch of players with 4 on both sides. Talk about apparently the pitching goat: Martin Perez, Shane McClanahan, Jameson Taillon, Nick Pivetta, Justin Verlander, Framber Valdez, Kevin Gausman, and Drew Rasmussen. All with 4 wins in the AL. And then the NL side: Tony Gonsolin, Luis Garcia, Zach Gallen, Tyler Anderson, Carlos Carrasco, and Walker Buehler, all with 4 wins. It's like a motley crew of some names with 4 wins. Martin Perez, Nick Pivetta, and like Drew Rasmussen. Jameson Taillon's been really good as well. Shane McClanahan's a freak. We already talked about him a million times. Verlander is aging like fine wine, as many would say. On the NL side, I mean, a bunch of younger guys. Gonsolin kind of around there. Zach Gallen has been really, really good this season. Tyler Anderson, we talked about him too. Is kind of like why do the Dodgers have to randomly find players and make them good all the time? Walker Buehler, right, his teammate right there, along with Tony Gonsolin too, I guess, and Luis Garcia.
I think he's the most interesting one because he's the only one on here that's a relief pitcher. It's sort of hard to keep track of all the Luis Garcias, right? There's tons of them. There's Luis Garcia, starter for the Astros. Yeah, Luis Garcia, middle infielder for the Nationals. This is Luis Garcia, relief pitcher for the San Diego Padres. And he was acquired as a free agent this offseason after picking up his career with the Cardinals last year. And he's been pretty impressive this last month, picking up 4 wins. Obviously, the names, the different levels of abilities amongst these names tells you how telling the wins stat is for a pitcher's performance. That's pretty much all there is to say here. There's just too many names to talk about.
Right. Wins are like one of the most polarizing pitching stats because I mean, if there's but so much a pitcher can do really. And a lot of it's just based on team success. So wins, they're nice, but not the end all be all. Same thing, in my opinion, with this category. Talk about the saves leaders. The AL saves leader is Chicago White Sox closer, Liam Hendricks. And the NL saves leader is Taylor Rogers of the San Diego Padres. So, I mean, 10 and 9 respectively. I mean, saves, I think, are not the most telling stat of how good a reliever is. But good for them. Good for these guys. 10 and 9 saves respectively. I know we always bring in the closer, so I feel like that's sacrilegious, and Jake's shooting me the dagger eyes. But yeah, good for these guys.
Yeah, I wouldn't really say that saves are telling, but if you are racking up saves, it usually means you're pretty good, and
Yeah.
that
Well, yeah.
it's more just like where your manager's putting you in the game. But
Mhm.
Hendricks has been really good after a rough April. He usually has a rough April, so good to see him once again turn it back around. He was amazing last year, and hopefully he can get back to that level this year. Taylor Rogers has been something else for the Padres, though. He had some blowups in his last few outings. Not his last two, but the three before that were really bad. I think he had like 3 straight losses. It was insane. Just not too great, especially on a fantasy team where like losses give you negative points and that kind of stuff. But he was really incredible before that. Was one of the league leaders in saves. Pretty crazy to see 10 saves from Hendricks, 9 saves from Rogers in a full month. And last month, like I said, in the shortened month of April, the league leaders, Romano and Hader, both had 10. So pretty impressive to have those guys just going crazy in the first month. And yeah, these guys were really great. Glad to see Hendricks doing well. And Rogers hopefully can get back on track after a rough week, but he had a really solid month of May.
Yeah. I think Rogers has 3 losses. He got all 3 of them in a row.
Yeah,
That's so
not
rough.
great.
Moving on to innings pitched. We already talked about this guy. Same thing with wins. Framber Valdez led the AL in innings pitched, 43. And podcast favorite, Sandy Alcantara, led the NL with 42.1 innings pitched. Chad innings eaters in full effect. We love Sandy. Framber Valdez, very sneaky good. He doesn't get as much recognition as he really deserves, but he's a real dog for the Astros. Really solid with their rotation.
Got that dog in him.
Yeah, he does. He definitely has the X grit factor. Got that dog in him. Yeah, Framber Valdez, good baseball player.
Yeah, he's just been eating innings like crazy. I think ever since like just the last few years, since 2020, he's just been a huge innings eater. What he does most impressively, I can't remember which article I wrote about him in, but in one of the last 2 articles I put out on the athletesub.org, he is just incredible at getting the ground balls. I think last year he was at like 70%, which is like mind-boggling, and now he's still at like 65% this year, which I'm pretty sure leads baseball. He didn't lead baseball in the month, but he did. He has been for the season. He's just been crazy. He's just crazy at getting ground balls. He's got a really solid curveball, and he eats a ton of innings. Which is, if you have more innings than Sandy Alcantara in a month, it's that's pretty telling.
Something.
Yeah, exactly. He threw a complete game. It wasn't a shutout, but he was really good in May, mostly in the innings eating factory, department. That's what I meant. Factory. Innings eating factory.
New baseball saying out just now.
Yeah.
The innings eating factory. Framber Valdez
is now the manager. Yeah, he's really good. He had a sub-3 ERA across the month. And then we have Sandy Alcantara, one of my favorite pitchers in all of baseball. I think across his last 4 or 5 starts, one of those, maybe 5, he's pitched at least 7 innings in each of them. So he's been killing it in the inning eating department. Once again, at the innings eating factory, he works for the innings eating department. He's amazing.
He's the supervisor at the innings eating factory.
Exactly. Yeah.
100%. 100% leader in X grit. He's both these guys got that dog in him. So, Chad innings eaters for the win. They're the best kind of pitchers. So moving on to the ERA leaders. We talked about him also in the wins category. Martin Perez in first place in the Baseball is Weird Awards, led all of baseball in the month of May with a .64 ERA and 4 wins, which is just ridiculous. And then the NL leader in ERA for the past month was Jose Quintana of the Pittsburgh Pirates with a 1.33 ERA. Two names you would absolutely never expect to be anywhere on like a league leaderboard, and they're not bad players. They're just not like the huge name starters that you would think. And it's like, oh, no. Yeah, Jose Quintana, unhittable. Martin Perez, prime Sandy Koufax. Just unreal. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you have to say about these guys?
Huge offseason acquisition for the Texas Rangers, Martin Perez. Yeah. Absolutely. If you have been watching baseball at all, you'll know that he's been incredible. I sort of kicked myself in that league where I have Lane Thomas and stuff. another fantasy baseball story for all the people that love hearing about this. I picked him up in Fab, which is like you bet on free agents on the waiver wire to get them on your team. You have to like submit bets and you have like a budget for the whole year. I won my bid on Martin Perez. Also, I'm like almost out of money now after I just like won all of my bids this last week, and it's not even halfway through the season. Yeah, it's my first year doing free agent betting, so that's why I'm just a little inexperienced. But I did get Martin Perez. His first start on my team was against the Astros, and I was really scared. I was like, oh man, like this guy's been on a roll, but like it's the Astros. Even though I know that he's been on a roll and that the Astros they are not good against pitchers that throw fastballs for strikes. And that's exactly what Martin Perez does. And he mowed them down for a complete game shutout. The only one of the month. So that one was on my bench. Yeah. So didn't go too well. Not a great start, but he's been still really good since then. What he's been doing most effectively across the last month is locating his sinker, changeup, and cutter. He has been just putting that changeup like low and away, or like on arm side away from righties, just perfectly. He's just been locating all of his pitches super well. It's not been limiting the walks per se, but he has been just like putting pitches where he wants to, getting a lot of soft contact. He still has yet to give up a home run on the season through all of these innings that he's pitched, which is pretty impressive. And Jose Quintana, who I wrote the top performers of the month. Martin Perez was the cover boy because he was so amazing. Jose Quintana did not even make the list. So I didn't even know that he had this ERA. So like when I went to go enter this into the rundown, I was just like, wait, what? I like literally had to double check to make sure it wasn't a mistake. A 1.33 ERA from Jose Quintana. He's been pretty impressive. He's been doing a good job of keeping his fastball up and his breakers down, which is sort of what Blake Snell did when he was with the Tampa Bay Rays when he won the Cy Young Award. Not saying Quintana's on the path to a Cy Young Award, but he's been really solid. And obviously he's got a secure spot in the rotation in Pittsburgh. Pretty interesting for a guy of Quintana's career, where he was really good with the White Sox, got traded to the Cubs, and was really just downhill from there. And now
really
seems to be turning things around a bit in Pittsburgh, which is good to see, but very surprising.
Yeah. Quintana, he's really did have like a really hot start to his career with the White Sox, and then just kind of never put it together with the Cubs. And then last year he was with the Angels to start the year, correct? I think he was with the Angels last year, and he's just
with the Giants last year at some point.
I think he was with the Angels and then the Giants. Just never really put it together super well with the Angels. He was a little bit better with the Giants, I think, but not too great. Martin Perez, though, like one of the biggest surprises in all of baseball. And in his first 2 starts, he gave up 3 earned and 4 innings pitched. This is from Jared Carabas, known Martin Perez lover, because he's a former Red Sox. Since then, he has not pitched fewer than 6 innings in a start, and is actually on a 9 straight quality start streak, which is tied for the most in Rangers franchise history. He's allowed more than one earned run once in that span, in that span since his first 2 starts. 1 earned run, more than 1 earned once. He leads the majors in ERA and overall in innings pitched. Since those first 2 starts, he is 4th in WHIP. So he's just been insane. Baseball super weird. Martin Perez, Cy Young winner, Martin Perez. So going on to the WHIPs leader, or to the WHIP leaders, excuse me, not the WHIPs leader. I don't know who that'd be. So the AL leader in WHIP for the past month was actually Tristan McKenzie of the Cleveland Guardians, 0.74 WHIP. He's been a really good pitcher, very quietly on a team that just consistently develops pitching talent. And the man that we talk about on almost every podcast at this point, NL WHIP leader Corbin Burns for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's just nasty. Baseball is in really good hands with a bunch of these pitchers. What are your thoughts, Jake?
Yeah, for real. They've Corbin Burns is really not much to say about him. NL Cy Young Award winner last year.
Yeah.
He's just unstoppable. Probably maybe the consensus best pitcher in baseball right now. just with the consistency over last year and keeping it heading into this year. He had a blow up in his last start, but that doesn't factor into this because that was in June. So yeah, really not much else to say about him. He's really good. And then you have Tristan McKenzie, T-Mac, who's really good. The T-Mac of baseball, in fact. Tracy McGrady. Tristan McKenzie's really good. He's across his last 4 starts, he's pitched at least 7 innings in each of them. The last one is not included in this whip. He gave up 5 runs in that one, so he's probably happy about that. But he's been really crazy. He's just like super tall, super skinny. What does Fangraphs say? 6'5", 165 pounds. I'm like 5'10", and I weigh almost that much. So he is literally a stick, but he's been really impressive so far this season. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys. He gets a lot of weak contact, which is really good, but he's just been really impressive, especially in that whip department, just limiting base runners. And that probably has to do with his 7.3 walk percentage on the season, which is probably not helped a bit by the 3 walks he gave up in his last start. He had only given up more than 2 walks once in an outing prior to that, but he's really been on a roll so far recently, especially across May.
Yeah, his starts in the month of May, he went in order are 6.1 innings pitched, 0 earned, 7 strikeouts, 6 innings pitched, 2 earned, 6 Ks, 7 innings pitched, 3 earned, 4 Ks, 7 innings pitched, 1 earned, 3 strikeouts, 7.2, 2 earned, 8 Ks. That's a 2.12 ERA over that span. Yeah, I mean, he gets a lot of soft contact. He's just really good. It's hard to talk about Corbin Burnes more than we already have. I mean, he's in like the conversation probably easily as another candidate to win the NL Cy Young again. He's just disgusting. So everyone that watches baseball knows how good Corbin Burnes is.
Mm-hmm.
And on to strikeouts. Corbin Burnes features here again, 45 strikeouts in the month of May, and then Chicago White Sox starter Dylan Cease, 48. Most strikeouts in baseball in the month of May. Dylan Cease breakout season? Or was that last year?
Yeah, I feel like he's pretty much just been doing what he's done last year. It's all of his break stats are pretty similar. Yeah, it's just like he just walks too many guys. He's walking more guys than he did last year, but he's giving up fewer home runs, and that's probably helped by a career low home run to fly ball rate, which could be due to the ball. So maybe that's turning around. He's got a lower ERA than last year, but he I don't know. He'll just have games where he just doesn't have his control, but it really doesn't matter because, like, even when he doesn't, he'll strike out guys like crazy. Like May 12th versus the Yankees at home, he went 4 innings, allowed 6 earned runs. You want to guess how many strikeouts he had?
Was it 14?
11. Still, nonetheless, if you go 4 innings and strike out 11, you'd guess like, oh man, that guy must have gone crazy, just had a crazy start. And it's just like, oh no, I actually gave up 6 earned runs. He gave up 7 earned runs against the Red Sox 2 starts later.
Ooh.
And to start the month of June, which is not factored into this, also, he just walked 7 batters to 5 strikeouts. So he's really a guy that, like, he really relies on having 2 of his breaking pitches working and throwing pitches in the zone for strikes, which is really important for a guy like him. But nonetheless, he's a huge strikeout guy. We already saw that last year. He struck out more than 200 batters. I think last year he struck out 226, which was among the AL leaders, especially because it was only in 165 innings. So pretty crazy, but he is definitely a fun guy to watch. He just needs to keep the walks down to take that next step. And it doesn't look like it's happening this year, but nonetheless, he's still a really impressive starter.
Yeah, this category hurts me personally, Cubs fan, and especially seeing Dylan Cease.
Oh yeah,
seeing Dylan.
Speaking of Jose Quintana,
yeah, great trade, awesome trade. I love that trade. Definitely great, awesome, perfect trade. I won't talk about it anymore. We'll talk about pitcher F4 and the F4 leaders for the month. It's that man again, Martin Perez, led all of the AL, and with 1.4 F4 and NL side, Zach Wheeler. We talked about him last podcast as another dark horse Cy Young candidate, and he's been like right in that conversation the last like 3 years. Yeah, Zach Wheeler led the entire NL in pitcher F4, also with 1.4, and he's like Zach Wheeler's so fun because he's so quietly good. and
Mhm.
everyone just doesn't really recognize how good Zach Wheeler is. I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's gonna be Nola days back, Nola season again." No, Zach Wheeler's the ace of that team.
Mhm.
It's not really even close. Yeah, he's been insane this year. 2.3 FIP, 2 WAR. Another big strikeout guy. Yeah, I mean he's a beast.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Wheeler, especially after last season. He was one of my breakout picks, so I drafted him in fantasy, and it actually made me think about my league winning rotation last year in fantasy. You're not going to believe this. It was a 12-team league. I remembered them all. It was Garrett Cole was my first pick.
Ooh,
Then I
pretty
had
good.
Lucas Giolito, and then I got Zach Wheeler, and then I got Sandy Alcantara, and I had Tyler Molly and John Means, and I was unstoppable.
How
It was
did
just like,
how did your league let that happen?
bro, it's because they just don't know. I mean, Sandy wasn't at that level last year. It took him taking off last year, and same with Wheeler. Wheeler was always a guy who didn't strike out the guys you would expect him to. Like he's got
Mhm.
crazy stuff, and he was always just like pretty mediocre. Like he would eat a lot of innings and get a lot of ground balls, but he wouldn't strike out guys. And last year he finally took off in that department. Same with Sandy. So Zach Wheeler is sort of very similar to Sandy. He doesn't eat innings as crazy as Sandy does, but he is really good. They've got very similar stuff, like high 90s fastball. Sandy throws a little harder. They both got a solid changeup and a slider. So yeah, I love Wheeler. I loved that pitching staff last year. I sort of feel like I'm even forgetting about one pitcher, but that's totally fine. He is really good, and he's been one of my favorites over the last couple of years after I called this breakout, and he helped me to another championship. Let's hope he can do it again this year because I drafted him again. But people were probably a little bit down on him because he had a slow start to the season because he literally like didn't pitch in spring training. He pitched like 2 starts or something because he had like shoulder fatigue at the end of last season because he threw a career high innings. He led majors in innings pitched. I think it was over 210 innings pitched. So pretty impressive. I actually have it right here. I don't know why I'm guessing.
213 in a
Thank
third.
you. Yeah, that's actually what I thought it was going to be. No proof of it because I didn't say it, but yeah, he had a slow start. He took the whole winter off because of that shoulder fatigue, and then got a late start to spring training. Missed the first go through of the rotation of the season. Took him a little while to get going because he was basically still pitching spring training games to start the season. And May he just took off and is looking like he was last year at like one of the top aces in baseball. Remember, finished second in NL Cy Young Award voting last year. So we'll see what he can do again. But is it time to run through the players of the month?
I think it is. So
All right.
a couple familiar names here. Players of the month. On the hitting side, Aaron Judge. He's probably the front runner for AL MVP at the moment. Home run leader now. What did you say? He's pacing it by 5. And I know that's not exactly factoring into the month of May, but he still led the AL in home runs in the month of May. He's just really good hitter. Strikeout percent super down. Hits the ball insanely hard. That outfield's just ridiculous. Him and Stanton, they punish baseballs. And then the NL hitter of the month is Paul Goldschmidt. This is just going to be called the Paul Goldschmidt pod because he's just been everywhere. Not a whole lot more to say about these guys. I mean, Paul Goldschmidt is making a case to be NL MVP as well. Machado kind of on the downswing a little bit, just not really staying at the hot pace that he's been at. Paul Goldschmidt's just picking up where he left off. He's just been insane. And Aaron Judge, he's Aaron Judge. I mean, Aaron Judge has a good case also, kind of like Mookie Betts when he's really like at his peak form. Like he's probably like a top 5 player, and that's evidenced by this season. I mean, he's been ridiculously good, and he's at this pace, he's going to win AL MVP.
Yep. And then pitchers of the month, we got the 2 F4 leaders, Martin Perez and Zach Wheeler. It was a given that Perez was going to walk away with that one. And Wheeler had not as much competition in the National League. The American League pitchers were a lot better than the National League pitchers this past month, but he had to deal with Sandy Alcantara and Corbin Burns. So definitely well earned. Martin Perez was absolutely insane. And rookies of the month, Julio Rodriguez in the American League. and Luis Gonzalez in the National League. Got their stats pulled up because we didn't talk about them at all. Luis Gonzalez in the month of May batted .368. He only hit 1 home run. He stole 3 bases. It was good for a 159 WRC plus. That's a pretty solid month. Luis Gonzalez, former White Sox. I forget how he made his way over to the Giants, but definitely dope to see a pretty unknown rookie take off with the Giants. He's been definitely helped a lot by BABIP, so probably won't keep this up for the rest of the season, but nonetheless, he's been really good and was really good in the month of May. And then a much more well-known hitter. For some reason, it pulled. Because I'm looking at Zach Wheeler. I forgot. I typed in Julio Rodriguez in the search bar and then never clicked enter. I was like, why is it showing pitching stats? Julio Rodriguez doesn't pitch. He really took off in the month of May after he was not too great in April, batting .205 with no home runs. He hit all 6 of his season's home run in the month of May, batting .309, and he stole 5 bases. He's leading the majors in stolen bases, so that's pretty impressive. That came with a WRC plus of 155, so he was really good. Julio Rodriguez is going to be really good for a long time. He seems like Ronald Acuna Jr., Fernando Tatis Jr. light, and I sort of predicted that earlier in the season when I was talking about Julio Rodriguez, that his best comp is Ronald Acuna because he's got the speed and the aggressiveness on the bases. He's got a really good eye at the plate, and he can hit for power, and he really showed that in the month of May.
Yeah. I mean, he was like a guy that just like kind of got out of the blocks pretty slow, and everyone's kind of pumping the brakes like, ooh, J-Rod, and like everyone should know how good he is. Rookie of the month kind of backs that up. I mean, slow start isn't anything. He's still insanely young. I'm fairly positive he can't even buy beer yet legally. Yeah. So I mean, what is he? Yeah. Oh, he's just turned 21. My mistake. My mistake. But yeah, he's so good. It's really nice to see Luis Gonzalez too, kind of an unheralded rookie, to get that I can't find the word, that praise like heaped upon him. It's good to see. Yeah, that recognition. That's the word. It's good to see a player like that get the recognition because he has he's not like a J-Rod where he's like a super prospect that's insanely young. He's kind of bounced around from like the White Sox and been in the minors for a lot longer. And then maybe he's going to break out and be really good at the Giants, who probably ran him through the cheating factory. Like I tease Jake about all the time. They take random players and turn them into stars, turn them into really good baseball players. So he'll fit along there. And relievers of the month. We're a reliever pod. We love relievers. You can also check out Jake's reliever rundowns. He does every week for Pitcher List. You should definitely do that. And check out their podcast
morning.
Check out their podcast too. Their most recent one. He actually ran down bullpens with the Pitcher List podcast. So check that out. In the pen. There you go. So go check that out. Really cool. To a former Pirate and a current Pirate. We got the AL reliever of the month was Clay Holmes, obviously now with the New York Yankees. And David Bednar, Yinzer Supreme, closer for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Really cool to see this. I actually really like David Bednar. I think he's really like a fun baseball player because he is the hometown kid for the Pirates, who don't really have much. I really think the Pirates are like a bad but fun team. Like they're great, and David Bednar's a big part of that. He's been nails out of the bullpen so far. He's got 10 saves on the year, like a sub-2. I think he has a sub-2 ERA or a sub-2 FIP. It's one of the two. It's a sub-2 ERA and a sub-2 FIP. There you go.
It's pretty good.
Yes, it is. And he's been really good. He's been really good to start the year. 37 strikeouts in 27 innings, 10 saves. He's kind of been in and out of the closer role a little bit. And Pirates obviously aren't very good, so he's not getting a ton of opportunities to close games. But yeah, David Bednar, really cool.
He was Bednar was my reliever of the month for the top fantasy baseball performers from May. He led the majors in saves and was really good. 21-2 strikeout to walk ratio, but that's pretty impressive from a reliever.
Oh yeah. And Clay Holmes. Wish Isaiah was here to talk about Clay Holmes.
Yeah,
it was kind of
real
randomly been been thrust into like this Yankees super pin that they almost always have. He's just been really good. I know when they made that trade last year, everyone was kind of like, "Oh, what is this trade?"
Yeah.
Like everyone kind of joked about it, like, "Oh, the Yankees are desperate. They're just getting whatever arm they possibly can," and now they're kind of making a lot of people look stupid because he's been really good.
0.34 ERA on the season. Didn't allow a run in May at all. 0 ERA across 14 innings pitched. Struck out 15 guys. He's one of those elite ground ball guys. You want to guess unless you have it up, what do you think his ground ball percentage is for the year?
Is it better than Framber Valdez's?
Yes, sir. Somehow.
Oh, God, it's got to be in like the mid 70s. Maybe 80. I want to say 78.
You'd be surprised to hear that it's 82.8% ground ball rate.
God.
He is insane at getting the ground balls. His sinker is heavy AF. He's the right-handed Zach Britton over there in Yankee land with Zach Britton on the IL.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he's been killing it. I hope that he holds on to the closer role with Aroldis Chapman dealing with some, I think it's Achilles stuff right now. He will be back at some point. It will be interesting to see if he holds on to the closer role when the fireballing Chapman comes back, the wife-beating Chapman.
As some baseball this
some
year,
might call him. Yeah, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the season, so it would make sense that the Yankees really wouldn't try to hold him to that role. But, he does have a lot more seniority than Clay Holmes. Maybe they want to use Holmes in a more fireman situation, put out the fires, high leverage reliever type stuff. But yeah, let's head on over to the standings check-in so we can talk more about the freaking Yankees in the absence of Isaiah. It would be really great if he just like hopped on right now and it was just like, oh yes, perfect timing. We're going to talk about the Yankees.
To talk about our Yankee overlords and all of baseball. So the Yankees, Yankees best record in all of baseball. Especially in the month of May, 39-15, just really good. And me and Jake kind of have egg on our face from before the season started, saying that the Yankees were probably going to be a fourth place team and that they haven't added enough and haven't really done enough.
Losers of the offseason, we said.
Yeah, I'll raise my hand. They were the losers of the offseason. They didn't do enough in a lot of people's minds, and I don't think we are alone in that. In that thinking. The rest of their division has been good too. It's not like they're playing in a terrible division. I mean, the Blue Jays have 30 wins. The Rays have 30 wins. The Red Sox have clawed back to be 500. And even the Orioles, who are chronically bad, have 23 wins. They're 23-33, which is good. I mean, the Yankees are just beating up on people too. It's not like they're scraping games. Their offense is a juggernaut. Of course, they play in a Little League park, so you kind of have to down that just as a thing to Yankees haters, just to say. But yeah, Yankees good at baseball.
Yep. Best record in American League, best record in baseball. You got the Twins also leading their division at 32-24, and the Astros taking over the Angels for the lead in the American League. So with these records, I considered just doing like the records from the month of May. Those were difficult to find. And I also considered just doing the records at the end of the month, but I figured, like the baseball that's happened this past week has happened. It's not like we are in the past right now. So I figured, let's just put the updated rankings. We've only got a few games going today. They don't start until 3 something. Yeah. So got to zoom through this so I can make sure to set all my lineups.
Angels,
but yeah,
Angels falling out of the top of the.
Holy moly.
They've lost 11 straight.
11 straight. Not too great. Crazy. I really hope they can turn it around. They just lost Taylor Ward to the IL. Shohei Ohtani is incredible. Not as great as last season, though. Mike Trout is in the longest hitless streak of his entire career. What more can you say? The Angels find a way to do it every single year. I really hope they can at least make a wild card game. There's so many wild card spots this year. It would be great to see Trout and Ohtani get a chance to shine on the national stage. Not much else to say in the American League other than your reppin' hat with Kansas City Royals.
Worst team in baseball, baby.
In baseball, yeah. Didn't see that one coming with the team that they were putting together. Pretty disappointing to see them that far. Also disappointing to see the Tigers at 21-33 after I predicted them to be a team that was going to take a big step this year. But Spencer Torkelson has been really bad enough to drop off my fantasy team in a 12-team league. And then you also have the A's, my my hometown team. 20-36, the second worst record in the American League. Not looking great for them. And also, last team that's been really disappointing is the Seattle Mariners at 24-30. They're a team that many were picking to really take off this year, sort of continue that fun differential from last year. And they really have not sub 500, but you have the most competitive division in the NL East or AL East, excuse me. And the AL West is sort of just being run away with by the Astros, who, I don't know, you could have sort of counted off this offseason after they didn't really acquire anybody. And then you have the Twins who made some big pitching additions, and it seems to be paying off so far for them.
Yeah. Just a little bit more about the Royals. They are currently owners of the worst run differential in all of baseball. Not good. They're also currently on pace to only win about 53 games, which is disgustingly bad. It's their worst start in their history. They're, of course, they're a smaller franchise, but they're a franchise steeped in history, and they're just very bad. And I know they're young, but they have a lot of older players that you would kind of expect to produce, like a Carlos Santana and Salvador Perez, and they're awful. Their team's bad. Yeah, not a whole lot other to say good about the Kansas City Royals, which is unfortunate. Moving on to the NL side, New York Mets currently leading the NL with the best record, just 2 games off their New York counterpart with 37-19. They've just been a juggernaut too. They're just a very good baseball team. Even losing Max Scherzer for an extended period of time. I know DeGrom has still kind of been in and out. They lost McGill. They're soldiering through. They're soldiering on, and they're still winning baseball games. And they have yet to do the Angels counterpart, where they have yet to Mets really bad. Maybe it's coming. Maybe they'll shed that finally, and maybe they'll finally kind of reach the mountaintop where they've been trying to get for so long. The rest of the NL East has kind of been mired in mediocrity. The Braves have kind of been right around 500 the entire season, dealt with some injuries and some inconsistencies, of course, with Ronald Acuna Jr. Matt Olson's been really inconsistent. Yeah, they've kind of been middling. The Phillies we talked about earlier are bad. They always find a way to be bad, no matter what. Of course, the rest of that division is the Marlins, who are trying their best. They're another bad but fun team. And the Washington Nationals, who are very much a bad but not fun team.
They are just Juan Soto.
Yeah, completely wasting Juan Soto is what they're doing right now. Although Keibert Ruiz had a pretty decent month. Yeah, he had a good month. Shout out to Keibert. Onto the NL East, Milwaukee Brewers are leading that division 33-23, but the Cardinals are right on their heels 32-23. Pittsburgh Pirates actually in third place 24-28.
I told you it was going to surprise you.
I know. Jumping the Chicago Cubs, who have been disgustingly bad. They're gone from like the old team with all the fun old rookies to now they're like the bad but not fun team. It's like, what's this team even trying to do? Maybe when they call up some more like rookies like Killian, they actually keep them up, Swarmer as well. Maybe they'll kind of creep back into the fun territory, but not right now.
Let's hope so.
And then the Reds are awful. They're terrible. Bad baseball team. Garbage can team. Everyone hates the Reds.
Speaking of the Reds, though, they are 18-35. They were 3-22 in April. So that means they were 15-13 in the month of May. So they were above 500. They had I think a top 10 at least run differential across the month. So they've really been turning it around. I think it was hard to believe that they were such a horrible team in that first month, because they I don't know. Nobody really thought okay, yeah, they got rid of Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez, but nobody really thought, okay, this team's going to be the worst team in baseball now. They literally have nobody on their team. That is not the case. And they've showed that, even though we still have the worst record in the National League, we are no longer the worst team in baseball. That honor goes to the Royals, like we mentioned. But they've been turning around a lot in May. Obviously, they're probably not a over 500 team, and they're obviously not the record breaking horrible team they were in April. So they're probably somewhere in between there, probably just a little bit below 500. I think they're still going to finish near the bottom of that division. It's hard to come back from that 3-22 start, but wouldn't it be amazing if they somehow made the playoffs after that start? They are on the right path right now of turning it around, but I don't have any, don't get your hopes up.
Yeah. don't get your hopes up ever with the Cincinnati Reds. Although they did have some cool fun news that actually 5 days ago on the 31st, the last game in May that we got to talk about. So in May, they still got a cool moment. They beat the Red Sox at Fenway for the first time since October 22nd, 1975, which is cool. I know interplay didn't really happen until like the mid to late 90s, but still, first win since 1975. That's cool.
They also had a 20-run game against your Chicago Cubs.
Yes, they did. I don't want to talk about that, Jay. We can skip it. Yeah, their offense is really potent when it actually like can do anything. Pitching has been horrible outside of like Luis Castillo, but yeah, maybe they'll bounce back. I wouldn't count them out of bouncing back, and I wouldn't count them out of going on another 3-22. It's the Cincinnati Reds. I think they're cursed by the baseball gods, and I especially think that it's even more so because of the stupid comments their owner made before the season. So yeah,
it wasn't even their owner. That was like
their
CEO,
their CEO or CFO or whatever. I think he's still in the family of the
sucks.
owner, though. Yeah,
That guy sucks.
He's a moron. So, and on to your division, the NL West. You can run this division down and talk about all that happened.
Yeah, you just want me to talk about the Dodgers being in first place at 35-19. The Giants had the best record in April, and Dodgers took it back over. They are clearly one of the best teams in all of baseball. I think they have the third best record, tied for the third best record with the Astros, behind the two New York teams. It's pretty given that the Dodgers are going to be good, especially when you got Mookie Betts back being incredible, and then you have the Padres in second place, 33-21. Giants in third place, still above 500, 5 games over at 29-24. And then we had talked about a couple times how the NL West was the only division with every single team above 500, and that has turned around with the Diamondbacks being 3 games under. And our favorite team, the podcast team, the free baseball mascot, the Colorado Rockies, are 23.
We've even got the purple
now
on the logo for the Rockies.
Yes, yeah. That's exactly why we chose it. They are not doing great anymore. They weren't great in the month of May. They released their jerseys. We talked about in the last episode. We power ranked the what are those called?
The City
Connect jerseys. Thank you. Yeah. We power ranked those in the last episode number 17. So go check that out if you want to see our thoughts on all of them. We should be getting the Angels ones pretty soon, so we'll be able to update those rankings.
Those are sweet too. They came out today. We'll talk about it next podcast.
Oh, they officially released them?
Yeah, they came out today. We'll talk about it next podcast.
Ooh, I gotta go look at those pictures, the fancy pictures. But yeah, nonetheless, the division is turning out how we thought it would last year with the Dodgers and the Padres at the top. It's dope to see the Padres doing so well. It's going to be amazing to see if they can get even better when Tatis comes back. They've just got so much pitching. Their offense is there. It will be better soon enough. But yeah, let's hope the Giants. Yeah, let's hope the Giants can stay in that conversation. The Dodgers are probably going to run away with this, though.
Yeah. Talking more about the Rockies. At least they're losing again in some really sweet jerseys, and former top prospect Brandon Rogers is doing stuff. So I mean, it's not all bad. They've got players that are fun to watch. Yeah, Connor Joe, who is like the most random baseball player that I can think of. Brandon Rogers, awesome. Chuck Nasty still plays baseball. I don't know if he's good. I wouldn't say so, but he's cool. He's got the beard. They got cool jerseys. They got a sweet ballpark. Out to the Rockies. Maybe they won't be completely terrible. They're fighting the
Maybe they won't be last place.
Yeah, I think if they finish 4th, that's like a good season for them. I think so. Season. We need like Rockies merch. Like we need like cool Rockies merch for the podcast.
I've got a Charlie Blackmon bobblehead at my mom's house, so
that's sick.
At some point that'll be in the background.
That's sick. Yeah, shout out to the Rockies. They'll be good again, maybe before me and Jake die. But I don't know.
They made the World Series once in our lifetime.
Oh yeah, Rocktober.
Yep.
Maybe we'll get to experience Rocktober again some point in our life. And on that note, I think it is a wonderful time, as we're talking about the NL West, to talk about bringing in the closer. And I'm going to hand the bullpen phone to you, Jake. You can make the call. Who are you calling to close out the podcast?
We've got, like it says right below my beautiful face, Eric Gagne is going to be the closer we're bringing in today. We just had Brian Wilson last week, so you got to bring in a Dodger to offset the Giants. So we've got Eric Gagne. This one is an interesting one. He is somebody marred by controversy. of course, but that will be at the end of this breakdown because his career did not start with controversy. He had a 10-year career, though, from 1999 through 2008. He began with the Dodgers, finished out his career in 2 seasons with the Rangers, Red Sox, and Milwaukee Brewers. He was drafted, like some people don't know, by the White Sox. Some people, as in me, in the 30th round of the 94 draft. He did not sign with the team, however, and as an undrafted free agent the following year, 1995, he signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers. He began his career as a starter, which seems to be a common theme amongst a lot of the closers on here that we talk about, is that they begin their career as starters and then aren't really good. He features a really fast fastball, some might say a blazing fastball, and a deadly Vulcan change, which is like a splitter, where you split the ball with your fingers, but you do it with the fingers sort of Spock style, where you get them in between your 2 fingers on each side of the ball in splitter fashion. So he debuted for those Dodgers as a starter in September of 1999 as a September call-up versus the Florida Marlins, the former Florida Marlins. They are now Miami. They are still in Florida, but they are no longer called that. They had much cooler jerseys back then. Nonetheless, he tossed 6 innings with 2 hits and no earned, 1 walk, and 8 Ks. What a debut for Gagne. Through that season, he made 5 starts across 30 innings in his rookie season, and he pitched to a 2.10 ERA. Things were looking promising as a starter up until the next 2 years, where he struggled to a 4.91 ERA in those 2 seasons in 2000 and 2001. He started 81% of the games he appeared in. That's 43 out of 53 of his appearances. So he was a starter, and then he transitioned to the bullpen in 2002 with Jeff Shaw. I don't know if he retired or left in free agency, but he was the closer in LA before our closer this evening, Eric Gagne, took over. And that is where his career took off. The next 3 seasons were some of the best 3 seasons from a closer we have ever seen in the history of baseball. He made an all-star team in each of those 3 seasons. Let's break them down. The first season, 2002, he made his first all-star team. He finished 4th in National League Cy Young Award voting and 12th in National League MVP voting. Tossed 82 1/3 innings pitched. Came with 52 saves. Incredible. Haven't seen that for a while since Edwin Diaz. 1.97 ERA, a .86 whip, and 114 strikeouts. The following season, 2003, was his best season of his career and one of the best seasons we've ever seen from a relief pitcher ever. He finished his second all-star team. He made his second all-star team, He was the National League Cy Young Award winner, making him the last reliever to win the Cy Young Award in our lifetime, or at all. No reliever has won the Cy Young Award since then, although Zach Britton was very much deserving just a few years ago. He finished 6th in MVP that year in 2003. He tossed another 82 1/3 innings pitched. He led the majors with 55 saves, a career high and a major league high, and a 1.20 ERA, a nice .69 whip, and 137 strikeouts. That's a crazy amount of strikeouts, 44.8% strikeout rate. That is something else, especially in 2003. And he led the majors with 67 games finished. He won the National League Raw-Aids Relief Man of the Year award for his efforts, and I'd hope he would win that if he won the Cy Young. So yeah, that's the last reliever to ever win the Cy Young, Eric Gagne. There's your trivia. And the following year, 2004, he made his 3rd straight all-star team, finishing 7th in National League Cy Young and 11th in MVP voting. Somehow the Dodgers knew exactly what they were doing with him, tossed him 81 1/3 innings for the 3rd straight year. They knew, like, all right, this is how much you're pitching, 82 1/3 innings. We don't care how good you are. That's how many innings you're pitching. 3 straight seasons. He finished this one with a mediocre 45 saves. Come on, man. 50 saves is supposed to be your baseline. Come on. What the heck is this? 2.19 ERA, .91 whip, and another 114 strikeouts, matching his 2002 season. He earned his 2nd National League Raw-Aids Relief Man of the Year award, and that was the season that he had the legendary matchup versus Barry Bonds, where they were both juiced out of their minds, and they had an agreement. I think this must have been reached at the All-Star game. They said, hey, next time we face each other, like, we're going all out, like, they agreed. Gagne has to throw all fastballs, but he gets 1 off-speed pitch. So if you're really interested, go look that up. Just look up Eric Gagne versus Barry Bonds, one of the greatest baseball videos of all time, especially if you know the context about how great Barry Bonds is and how great Gagne was in that season, because it was the year after his incredible season. They were both at their peaks. Gagne is throwing 100-mile-per-hour fastballs. Barry Bonds is pulling them down the line early. He's early on 100-mile fastballs. To spoil it, which I'm going to do, he missed with his one off-speed pitch, so then it was just fastballs from the end of there, and Barry Bonds was trying to time him, and I'm pretty sure you can guess who won, and it's the GOAT. Barry Bonds crushed a home run into the bay, and it's one of the best videos of all time still to this day. I love that one. Great matchup. But the thing that Gagne is most known for, other than his controversy, is that across those 3 seasons, 2002 to 2004, he set a still MLB record for consecutive successful saves converted with 84. He was just unstoppable across those 3 seasons, just never let the team down in the 9th inning. The next 2 seasons weren't too great, and this is where his career really started to die down. So it was really just a 3-year run of being the best closer in baseball by far, and then it was all downhill from there. He had elbow surgery in 2005, was limited in that season, was limited in 2006 as he had back surgery. He finished his Dodger career after that 2006 season. That was his last season in LA. He finished his career there with the most saves in franchise history, 161. Pretty sure that's been surpassed by Kenley Jansen since then. Nonetheless, Gagne is one of the best closers in Dodgers history. He signed with the Rangers after that season for the 2007 season, and in what would be his last successful stint in the majors, he tossed 33 and a third innings, had 16 saves and a 2.16 ERA with a 1.05 WHIP and 29 strikeouts. Stark contrast to his 44.8% strikeout rate in that 2003 season. But he was then traded halfway through the season at the deadline to the Red Sox, who decided not to use him in high leverage situations. He pitched poorly, pitched in the playoffs as well. He was mostly mop-up pitching in games that they were leading by a large amount. He had a 6.75 ERA in just 18 2/3 innings pitched during the regular season, but he did win his first and only World Series ring on that 2007 championship team for the Red Sox. He signed with the Brewers prior to the next season, 2008, and literally 3 days later was named in the Mitchell Report, denoting all the players that did performance-enhancing drugs in the past. And so that was the big controversy that surrounded and clouded Gagne's incredible career. Nonetheless, he finished that season with a 5.44 ERA. Not great, but he did add on 10 saves to his career total, and that would be the end of his career. He did try and do a comeback. He signed a minor league deal with the Brewers and was released, and then he tried to come back with the Dodgers, and that didn't work out either. But that was the end of his career in that season. For his career, though, 11.7 Baseball Reference WAR across 643 and 2/3 innings pitched with 718 strikeouts. He had 187 saves that came with a 3.47 ERA and a 1.16 WHIP. Those 187 saves are 59th all time on the career leaderboard. And yeah, that's Eric Gagne, just an incredible pitcher, probably aided a little bit, maybe only slightly, by his use of performance-enhancing drugs that I'm sure he is not all too proud of. But yeah, he had a really, really exciting 3-year run as just an unstoppable relief pitcher. And he was really fun to watch, and I'm glad he got a chance to close out an episode of Free Baseball.
Absolutely. And just like our little graphic behind us says, we do the show every Monday at 4:00. Make sure you check back in with us next week, where we'll talk about Angel City Connect jerseys and whatever else happens in baseball. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at DVS Bird for me. That's me, Davis Bird. And make sure you follow at Jake Crumpler for Jake Crumpler. And our third co-host, Isaiah Hansen. You can follow him at Isaiah2896. Make sure you follow the Athletes Hub on Twitter and read all of our articles at theathleteshub.org. Check out Jake's stuff with the pitcher list. It's really good.
Thank you.
There's a lot of fantasy baseball content if you're into that. I'm not a big fantasy guy, but Jake's one of the best. So check out Jake's stuff. And on that note, we will see you next time.